talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, that is right. Welcome, everybody, on in to the Saturday Night Network for our SNL Season 51 Awards show, here to talk about the entire season that just passed in the 2025-2026 TV year. And I am so excited to bring in our panel for our final roundtable of the season. And it is my man, Rich Tackenberg, joining me first. Joins me every Memorial Day. Rich, how are you?
It is tradition. There's no better way to wrap up the season than this. So I'd love to thank you for having me. I love being here.
Yeah, love to get to talk to you all season long, Rich, and grateful to get to do this with you again for a great season of SNL. And joining me as well is our Canadian friend, Kirstin Rajala.
Hello. I love an award show, so I'm very excited to be here. And this is becoming a bit of a tradition. I think, Law, we're talking to you for the first time on this end of season kind of recap awards. And I'm liking this grid here, Jon.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great panel we have on with us tonight. So last but not least is the incredible Law Murray with us. Law, how are you, buddy?
I feel good, and I appreciate y'all welcoming me doing this show for the first time. And yeah, it's the unofficial start of summer as far as I'm concerned. So this is a pretty good inflection point in that.
Yes, it definitely is. And we have a great summer in store for you here on the podcast. If you've been with us for a few years now, you may know this show as our postseason roundtable, where we typically talk about the entire season, the major themes, go through the best moments, cold opens, MVPs, all of that. This time, we tried to turn this into an official award show. So we thought it would be fun to, we have such a large community. We want to get everybody involved in the show. So we thought it'd be fun to involve you this year. So in case you missed it, if you're not on our social media or in our patron community, last week, we put out a Google form to our patrons and our regular group of panelists to ask them for 12 different awards, what they thought were the best cold opens, MVP, breakout player of the season, rookie of the year, all the big moments that we want to celebrate throughout the entire season. We then compiled the results, narrowed it down to some finalists, and put them out to our social media following, where we got an influx of votes over the weekend and now have winners for each of these awards. In total, I think we have almost 10,000 votes that came in for all of these awards. So seriously, very thankful for everyone who voted. I know you are all excited and passionate about Saturday Night Live, so I'm happy that we could be involved in this together and go through and talk about each of the winners of these categories. So we will get to that. One thing we do always do at the start of our roundtable to wrap up the season is just talk about the major themes and macro moments. That's really what we focus on Monday nights, is how will an episode be remembered? And tonight we're going to focus on how will season 51 be remembered before we dive into all the specific moments. So Rich, are there any themes or major takeaways that you're thinking about right now as you reflect on season 51?
So many, and I don't want to dominate the whole conversation, so I'll start with this. I think that for so many people I know that are not hardcore SNL fans, I think that the feeling was like, oh, well, season 50 was the big hubbub, the big to-do, all the celebrities and da-da-da-da. But now is 51 going to feel kind of been there, done that? And the answer is very clearly no. I think that as a regular season goes, 51 might have been stronger than 50. I think this was overall a great season for our team. Of course, we didn't win every game. Not every show was a winner. But overall, I thought this was a really, really good season. And an odd season in that I felt like, going back and getting ready for this, that normally seasons start with the old timers kind of dominating, and then the newcomers kind of get their footing. I feel like this was a season where the newcomers really dominated in the first season, and then the old timers in the second half were kind of like, no, I'm Mikey Day, I'm still here. No, I'm Sarah Sherman, I'm not going anywhere. Like, it was a nice mix of sort of seeing old and new. So I think the headline was just a really strong season.
I think that tracks. I mean, a lot of the, sort of turning of the page to a new era seasons aren't quickly, hey, we're going to just throw everything from the previous season out the window. It is a lot of transition, and some episodes feel like the old era, some episodes feel like the new era. And that's why this season definitely felt transitional for me. And I'm completely with you. If you would have asked me 5 or 6 years ago what I thought season 50 and 51 would look like, I would tell you that SNL was trying to peak for season 50. They wanted the biggest eyeballs on the show. They wanted the best possible show. And I think that they made a spectacle of the season, but I think the individual episodes were just okay. I think they were sort of holding on to the baggage of the last few years and didn't want to focus on how do we make the show better when they're just trying to focus on celebrating the show. And in fact, I've been so impressed with how they found a way to come back from last season where everybody was talking about Saturday Night Live to keep the buzz going. So I think we can celebrate this season for sure, Kirstin. So what do you think about any major themes or takeaways as we reflect on season 51?
I agree. I agree both with the sentiment that they had all their eggs in the 50 basket, and it seemed like they were holding back a little bit leading up to it, and now we got full throttle again. So was this a legendary season? I don't know. Was it culturally dominant? It's a changing landscape, so yes and no. It was a really healthy season, I'd call it. Healthy is the word I would use. And it did feel like the cast started to act like and feel like more of an ecosystem. It was feeling a little bit like the sum of its parts at times, like you could see, again, like you're saying, old and new. And that rookie class really injected some energy. Rich, you mentioned this, like they came in and threw gas on that fire in a really great way, because yes, they ignited the kind of enthusiasm for everyone who's been on the show for a long time and made it feel really fresh again. And came out on top on many sketches, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be the first major theme we'll get into in a moment, but I want to give Law the opportunity just to give me some overall thoughts about how you're feeling about 51.
Yeah, overall thoughts. I looked at this season as a transitional season. There were a lot of new cast members. There were a lot of cast members who exited the show, and you have to look at it like this. You had the first 25 years of show. You had the next 25 years of the show. Which that period ended with season 50. This is a third phase of looking at the show in 25-year sample sizes that hopefully I get to see the end of this one, right? And not because the show didn't make it to season 75. I don't want to count how old I'll be then, but I'll be old. But like going into it, I was thinking it was going to be a messy season just because of all those changes. And I was on the show with my brother from another, Mike Murray, and you, John, and it was the season finale, and I used the word fun to describe the season. Like I felt like this was a legitimately fun season, mainly for things that we didn't foresee as much. I will say that this season had quite an absence of recurring items outside of certain impressions. Certain impressions recurred quite a bit. I'm sure we'll get to that. And things felt old, but not stale. Like there were old hosts. The cast members are getting, there are still some cast members that are getting older. Like Weekend Update continues to have the oldest anchors who have ever done this, but I felt like there was just a really nice blend. I felt like it was a fragile thing, but I thought it was a really nice blend of some of the things that we're used to, some of the established figures in the show, as well as some new things that made the show fresh and, again, fun throughout a 20-episode season.
So to your point, I think that we only had Snack Homies as a recurring sketch that debuted this season. There was nothing else that we would really focus on saying, oh, wow, this sketch became the sketch that sort of represents the season, and it was recurring. And that sort of does follow the theme of the last few years. But yeah, there's a few things you guys mentioned. So we'll do a little bit of rapid fire on these themes and important moments. One was the cast changes, as Kirstin talked about. So at the end of season 50, we lost Heidi Gardner, Michael Longfellow, Ego Wodum, Emil Joachim, and Devin Walker. So those 5 were gone. And then we brought in 5 new cast members at the start of the season. So it was very exciting when it was announced that Ben Marshall was going to come from PDD and then go into the cast. And he would be joined by stand-up Tommy Brennan, Cam Patterson, another stand-up himself, Jeremy Colhane, who came from Dropout, and Veronica Slowkowska, who was in the mix to join the show the previous year and then came on to the show, obviously has a very large following. So we replaced the 5 with the same 5. We then lost Bowen at the holidays. So he was the other departure that maybe Lauren had said, hey, stick around a few more months. And then he had a big departure in the Ariana Grande and Cher episode. So Rich, compared to where we were 1 year ago, how are you feeling about the cast right now with all the changes we've seen in the last calendar year?
Great. I mean, when you list the names of sort of who we lost, I think it does. One of the things we'll see as we look at the episodes is, while all 5 of those people were great, it was really Heidi and Ego that were dominating in screen time and in sort of the weight of the show. And I think what we saw is a lot of the female cast members got a chance to rise, especially early in the season, where as much as we loved Michael, we loved Longfellow, we loved everyone who we lost. I think it was a very crowded landscape for the male cast members. And if you weren't playing a political figure that guaranteed you time on the show, it was a much more hit and miss episode as far as how much screen time you were going to get on an episode. So we saw a lot of variations along the way, unless you're Keenan. But as far as just overall quality of cast, I feel like it's this is a very strong cast.
I agree with you. Look, I think Heidi and Ego were really important cast members for their era. I miss them. I miss seeing them on the show. I do have what if questions had they been on this season, if we may have seen them thrive or, increase their legacy even further. But certainly it was interesting to inject some of the new blood we had this year. I think of Jeremy and Veronica as people in particular, Kirstin, that I really enjoyed getting to see this season. How do you feel about all the changes we had in the last year?
When you mentioned the names of the folks who left, I thought, wow, the new cast really made me not think of them. That's pretty remarkable, because I was heartbroken, as a lot of us were, when we saw that list. Some of them reached great potential. Some didn't get as much of a chance to. And wow, this new cast really filled those shoes, because if Heidi and Ego were still there, would we have gotten all the moments we did with Veronica and Jane and Ashley? I don't think we would. So I guess it was a good change. It hurts at the time, but it was a good change.
And it's so interesting that, there was a lot of turnover among the women of this show. For the men, it was some of the younger guys that dropped off the show, people like Longfellow and Devin, who were in the same class as Marcelo, Emil, who was a rookie. So it will be interesting to see what they do adjust from 51 to 52, but we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Law, how do you feel about all the cast changes we saw this year, including even Bowen, who was such a big part of the previous era, and now we didn't know if he was going or not, and he did have this big departure?
Yeah, Bowen leaving, it really, for me, made the season feel like 2 seasons. It almost felt like one of those seasons where you had an election and you front load the show of the season with one kind of programming and writing with respect to that election and the immediate fallout of the election, versus what happens the rest of the season afterwards. Like, I didn't feel like there was a heaviness to Bowen up until that Ariana Grande Cher episode, but I definitely felt his absence afterwards, but not in a bad way. Like, I felt like some players emerged and got to do more, and the cast was even more unified in a sense. And that's what I really enjoyed about the, if you want to call it, freshman class, the featured players on the show. Like, there were 7 of them. That's a lot of featured players. It's a lot of one in year one. And obviously we had 2 holdovers, to use not the nicest word, but definitely an accurate one, 2 holdovers from last year's freshman class that, and Emil didn't make it to this year's, and Emil was certainly worthy of making it. So there was something to watch even with that, 2 years in a row where a one and done cast member who you would have thought earned a second year didn't get a second year, and you see who's there, and it's like, well, what do you have? They let them not necessarily carry the show entirely, but that was a lot of work for those future players this year. Like, they could have been their own cast. And I thought that was the most refreshing part of the season, is there was a egalitarian approach to who got work in season 51. And it's really exciting because you would think that they have a lot more gas in the tank, a lot more to show that even this season they didn't get to show. And so I thought that was the best thing I could have seen from this year's cast.
I'm with you on that. I would say that maybe the biggest win for the show this year was the booking department, because if you look at the hosts that were booked for this season, I think it was really impressive what they were able to do in 51. Kirstin, I had the thought that maybe some of the people that they booked this year didn't want to host in the big anniversary season. Perhaps that they felt like, hey, I'm going to get overshadowed. There's a lot of things going on, and I want the show to all feel about me and not the election or things like that. But I'll just go through the list. Bad Bunny, Amy Poehler, Sabrina Carpenter, Miles Teller, Nikki Glazer, Glenn Powell, Melissa McCarthy, Josh O'Connor, Ariana Grande, Finn Wolfhard, Tiana Taylor, Alexander Skarsgård, Connor Storrie, Ryan Gosling, Harry Styles, Jack Black, Coleman Domingo, Olivia Rodrigo, Matt Damon, and Will Ferrell. It's a murderer's row of hosts that we had here this year. So how do you feel about all the hosts we had in 51?
I agree with you. I think there was definitely some strategy there, and whether it was on the part of the performers who said, I'm going to sit out this one and enjoy the show because it was amazing, this big spectacle that was 50. And also they were reserving spots for the Will Ferrells and all of those people that, were real legacy cast members and family of the show. So there's like people that were just on the periphery, so they saved some. It was smart to do. And then you've got people like Tiana Taylor who broke out, and there were some people that really came on the radar and were perfectly cast for 51. And then like a Glenn Powell, who I've wanted on the show for years and was supposed to be on the show and finally made it this year. And so a little bit of it, I guess, was their lucky time, coinciding with the great moments in their career also.
Law, I feel like the buffet this year was just so great, because what you had was, if you were looking for double duty, you got it. You got 3 double duty hosts. If you were looking for some exciting people that people have wanted to host for years in Glenn Powell, Olivia Rodrigo, you had that. You had some all-timers like Jack Black and Melissa McCarthy, Will Ferrell come back to the show. A lot of really great things. Amy Poehler, so many cool moments that we've had here throughout the entire year. How do you feel about the hosts?
What's funny about the hosts is so 6 of them were 50 or older, and that actually decreased from the year before. That is something that I noticed. First of all, none of the hosts suck. And that's, I watched back because I was like, holy crap, Jon's got me on the roundtable show. I don't know what this is about. And I watched every episode back over the last several days. I mean, none of the hosts sucked. They were all good. I also noticed that 8 of the last 9 shows were hosted by men. So I wonder if that split gets evened out to start next season, but we can have that talk for later. But I thought, to your point, Jon, there was a lot of good energy. I thought everybody was just kind of happy to be there. We had a really good season as far as hosts, as far as monologues, as far as just what they were doing with those hosts in the shows. I thought that was one of the best parts of the season for sure.
Look, I agree with you. I think having only 2 women hosts in the back half was egregious. They did a great job in the first half with having, I think, more women than men, if I did the math correctly. And, that was great, but it doesn't justify going so long and having such a long stretch. Some of these things end up being circumstantial, where people drop out and we never know the full situation there. So I've always been told the company line is, hey, like we always try our best to make things even out and do it. But, you know, you got to put pen to paper and get these people in the building. So I definitely think that is something to consider when looking back at this season. But overall, Rich, I think you can argue that a lot of the people who hosted on any given Saturday night are one of the biggest stars in the world. And that's all you can really ask for from this show.
Yeah, no, I really like the mix. Also, to call out what we didn't see. I mean, you know, we said, you know, Amy and Will, but only 2 alumni, only 1 stand-up comedian the whole season. We usually have a couple of stand-up comics, and there wasn't a lot of like friend of show bookings, as you say. I mean, I like what Law brought up. It felt young, it felt fresh. Even a Matt Damon, who's probably, well, I'm probably older than Matt, but you closer to my age, still felt fresh. So I thought this was a really good turn. I think the musical guest hosting is always a win. I can't remember the last time that didn't work out. I know it's happened. So yeah, I thought that this was really smart booking across the board.
Yeah, and I do think that they do have a couple of friends of the show that they're building with this new cast. We talked a couple times about Sabrina Carpenter's relationship with Veronica and how that's so important for a new cast member to get in with a really popular host who might come back time and time again. So you start to think about these things and look for pieces of, you know, who might be the hosts of the next few years. So I think that there were some good choices here. Obviously, we can always do better. And, you know, I look forward to seeing what they're going to do in 52. I know there's a lot of names that are on the table right now for people that everyone would love to see come into the show next year. All right, last little bit that I want to talk about here in our overall theme section is politics. So, as you know, it's a huge part of Saturday Night Live every single year is how they handle the political scene. And if you go back to the start of the year, you know, late night and politics, one of the biggest stories, everybody was talking about it because it was right after Jimmy Kimmel went off the air. Colbert had recently been canceled. You know, we are, you know, sort of, you know, watching the winding road of, you know, how this administration has been dealing with late night. But for the most part, it seems like they've laid off Saturday Night Live and haven't been so attacking the show on a week to week in the way that they were when Trump was the president the first time. So I think that's a really interesting factor to consider here. And the show, in the way that they've addressed politics throughout the year, is we sort of alternated, you know, we sort of like flip-flopped week to week between Jost as Pete Hegseth with everything that's happening with the war and attacking whomever, and James as Trump. So, Law, I'll start with you this time. How do you feel about how politics was handled in 51?
Man, I never thought I would need to see, well, I still don't, but the show had me watching more Pete Hegseth than I ever thought I would. So there's that. I mean, damn near every show had some kind of political bent in the cold opens. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Like, I love the old shows, man, in the 80s where you didn't know what you were getting before Live from New York and the cold open and the monologue. Like, that's a pipe dream. Like, it's a crutch if you want me to be really honest with you. I feel like it is, you're going to get a ton of political commentary and comedy because that's just an easy way to start the show. It's an easy way to get the weekend update, especially the top part of weekend update. And then, you know, every now and again you get an episode where you get some of that in live sketches as well, some pre-tapes. So you had a lot of it. And, you know, it wasn't just the president. Obviously, they brought Pete Davidson, of all people, in to do, you know, Tom Homan or whatever his name was. Pete wasn't on enough for me to remember his name, so forgive me. You had the New York mayoral race, you know, so they brought in Youssef for that, and obviously this wound up being Aziz Ansari coming back as well. So it was an interesting season. I thought it was good. I thought what they hit was good, but it was a lot, especially for a non-election year.
Yeah, Rich, how do you feel about that? I mean, there was obviously a lot of attention last year on Maya as Kamala, and then, you know, what were they going to do with the Trump impression? And then after he got elected again, it was a lot of him standing in front and talking about what's happening from a very meta perspective on the show. How are you feeling about what we saw in politics this year on SNL?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Law said. I think that when we look at the cold opens, SNL is a show that has been so good at evolving with the times and becoming, what it needs to be in the moment. And I would say the cold open is probably the exception to that rule. I think that we are stuck in this belief that we have to cover the current event of the week. We as SNL have to address what happened, and I don't know that that's necessarily true anymore. So I mean, that said, going back and preparing for this, I was surprised how many Trumps that at the time was getting a little dated. A lot of funny jokes, a lot of headsets that were feeling dated, a lot of funny jokes. Like, the writing isn't the problem, the acting isn't the problem. I do think that it's holding on to the idea that we all need to know what SNL says about something that we've been listening to Twitter and late night and TikTok and YouTube all throughout the week. I would love for them to start, trying to do more meta sketches that are bigger picture, or just mix it up and just do something different. I think, one of the Ashley Padilla performances, tour de force performances, imagine just having started with one of those as a cold open. Like, how refreshing would it be? We're so burnt out from politics. Whichever side you're on, you're almost definitely burnt out. So the SNL cold open feels sometimes like an obligation, not an escape from the thing we're watching SNL to escape from.
It's true. It is a catch-22 for them, though, because once they stop doing it, they may feel they'll lose attention on the show, because it is the one thing that all the trades are for sure going to write about, what SNL will do in the cold open. So it is definitely something to consider. And Kirstin, as a fellow Canadian, I know that, watching Saturday Night Live for a long time, you might feel like, okay, we're on the outside of this mess. But definitely this year, I felt like we've been dragged into whatever's been going on down there. So how have you felt about what you saw SNL do with politics this year?
Sorry, John, my internet just cut out. Was that for me?
Yes, it was for you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. Rich, I love how you summarize that, because I agree. Like, let's TNT the formula of the cold open. Like, it could be a bingo card at this point. Press conference, check. Briefing room, check. Trump enters late, check. Escalating incompetence, check. Cameo, applause, check. So, there was a real rhythm to it, and it started to become formulaic. And I love what you said about the writing, the acting. They were all great, but why are we following this pattern? Why do we feel like we have to do this? So
I don't know if
absurd that we really are just seeing.
Here, Kirstin, we are losing you a little bit. So if you do catch us, just drop out and we will come right back to you. So sorry about that, everybody, but we'll get Kirstin back in a moment. I'm sure she'll just drop out and come on right back. All right. Well, we did touch on politics, and I loved everything that Kirstin was saying. So agreed. But let's jump over to, thematically to our award show, where we're going to be talking about these moments that we were excited to get into from the season. And even if you didn't love politics this year, there must be a cold open that you did love. So we asked you all to vote on your favorite cold opens. Rich, which one did you put on your ballot before we talk about the one that got the award this year?
Oh, this is great. The thing with the awards is always the hardest part is recency bias. It's hard to go back and remember ones from, almost a year ago, especially with cold opens. And while I usually will rail against using celebrity cameos to sort of prop up the show when you've got such a strong cast, I do think that the New York mayoral debate, I think, was, for me, my favorite. I think using Miles Teller, not a comedian, not an impressionist, as Cuomo, bringing in Rami, as Law mentioned, as Mandami, Shane Gillis as Sliwa, Cam in it, and then just the right amount of Trump. I think as far as the way that it was covered, I think this was the best combination of fun, exciting, and funny for me.
That definitely was a great one. It was, a time where it's always scary when you bring in these outside performers to play people, but it was so cool because we don't really get to cover a mayoral election very often. It's always very national, the way that they look at politics, even if it is a New York centric show. So I feel like that was a very good choice, Rich, and one that I also put down as my best cold open of the season. Kirstin, do we have you back? And can you give us which cold open you chose on your ballot?
Yeah, man, you know what? I've got a teenager in the house who's gaming. He's eaten up all of my bandwidth.
It happened.
Cold open, yeah, cold open was tough because I think the standout for me, okay, there's two things. One, the standout for me is I did enjoy the Pete Hegseth. I did enjoy Colin in that role. I remember the second time he did it, I thought, oh, getting some tips from your wife because his acting improved, and I enjoyed it. And it was great writing and great acting. But the Martin's Tavern for me was, as I was chatting about when my internet went squirrely, that to me was taking the time to create a storyline around what's happening versus just reading the news. And so that one was very fun. I love cameos, and it really stood out. So Martin's Tavern is my choice for cold open.
Yeah, and that was the one that we saw in our penultimate episode of the season, where we did combine Kavanaugh from Matt Damon with Aziz as Kash Patel, and obviously Hegseth, and just them broing out and having a good time at the bar. So certainly one that was widely considered as the best cold open of the season. Law, how are you feeling about your cold open pick for this year?
Kirstin mentioned it, and man, when Joe's came back as Pete Hegseth for the Melissa McCarthy episode, that's when I was like, they're actually letting this dude Jost run with this. Like I was hyped. Like I love when, especially like the kind of anchors who are like nailed to the desk actually get to do stuff. Like Tina really didn't get to do that too much until after she left, and then obviously we just saw a different version of Tina Fey. I was like, I didn't know you had this in you. Colin getting to do this again, didn't expect to see it 7 out of the last 8 episodes, but when we saw it established that this could recur, that this was the second time around, I was like, all right, this is fun. Like, and look, I'm a WWE fan, not now as much, but growing up in the Attitude Era where the homies was putting people through tables and using steel chairs as the appropriate weapons and whatnot during recess. Like, I can appreciate a good entrance theme, you know what I'm saying? And that's what they did for this particular cold open. Like, it gave me a lot of energy. And I don't love the 10-minute cold opens. This was relatively tight. So that is why I picked that one for my cold open of the season.
Yeah, seriously, it's a great choice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up our finalists as you voted, if you were a patron or one of our podcasters, to show you which are the final 5. And here we go. I'll put them up on screen. We have 5 episodes to choose from. And here, Pam Bondi, that one was the Amy Poehler episode where she teamed up with Tina Fey. So we had that Tina and Amy in the cold open from episode 2. We talked about the New York City mayoral debate. NCAA Final Four post-game show. That's from the Jack Black episode where we had the Charles Barkley impression, who always wanted to take it back to talking about, different rights and things like that when they were just trying to talk about March Madness. Martin's Tavern, obviously, we did cover that. And then Epstein's Ghost. This was our season finale cold open where we got Will Ferrell coming in as Jeffrey Epstein. So these were the final 5 picks. Rich, which one do you think the audience chose?
I'm going to say Martin's Tavern. I think recency bias and the fact that it was so good and he was so good in it. I'm going to guess Martin's Tavern. Yeah.
Anyone disagree with Rich here? All right. So across the board, we think that Martin's Tavern was the pick. So we had almost 2,000 votes come in for this one. And the winner was, for the first award of season 51, drum roll, please. Here we go. Epstein's Ghost actually was the choice here by the audience. The season finale cold open. Very interesting. I mean, I would, like I said, I would have chosen the New York City, mayor cold open. I think Martin's Tavern was a good choice for sure. But Epstein's Ghost could be recency bias, perhaps, or maybe Will Ferrell is just that good and that compelling. Rich, did they really get this wrong?
No, I mean, as we said, things being so topical, it's hard to remember what we thought, going back when. But I think the fact that they just did Epstein in and of itself was such a great moment that they had the cojones to do it, and Will's commitment to it. So, and a lot of funny jokes in this. So it wasn't my absolute favorite, but top 3 for sure.
Yeah, so I'll go over the percentages for this one. So Epstein's Ghost squeaked it out, 29.4% of the vote, just ahead of Martin's Tavern in third place with 26.9% of the vote. So about 2.5% of the voting public chose this one over Martin's Tavern. The Pam Bondi cold open from episode 2, that was 20.2%. The mayoral debate came in fourth place with 18.7%, and then the NCAA one was just 4.8%, so a little bit under 5 there. That came in fifth place. So congratulations to our season finales cold open as the best cold open, last for the season, but the best in all of the listeners' hearts. So there you go. All right, let's jump to another section of the show. Let's go to the monologues. Let's talk about that this season. So a lot of interesting monologues that we had throughout the year, including celebrating the actual 50th anniversary of the show, the 1000th episode. We've seen a lot of different types of monologues throughout the year. Kirstin, how do you feel about your monologue pick for this year?
This was easy for me. I've referenced this already. I have been waiting for Glenn Powell to host for a long time. He shows up. If you don't know him, you quickly realize why we all love him. He's incredibly charismatic, but seems genuinely so. And, very likable, very just down to clown, down to have fun, and his sincerity reeks off him. And then he tells a story about the UPS driver, pure later driver, whoever, courier, who had been at his place and who he then brought on the show and had in the audience and brought up. Like, he is apple pie and all things, that feel good. So because it was such a genuine sentimental moment, really stood out to me as having the monologue of the year. And then obviously he had a great episode, but that one is top of mind.
That was one of the ones that I was widely considering. I thought it was such a great moment. I actually spoke to Mitch, the UPS driver. We were trying to arrange for him to come onto the podcast after that monologue, and he had the flu. He had done a CNN bit, and he got super sick after, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And kind of the time passed by, and it didn't really work out. But he's such a nice guy. It's very rare that you get a situation where you have a non-celebrity make an appearance on the show, but truly a great sentimental moment. I thought it was certainly a contender here. Law, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling like me and Kirstin had the same, we had the same wavelength on this. Look, there are monologues that literally will send you to sleep, and there are some where the host wants you to fade. There are so many layers to this. Like, the story itself, even without the UPS dude, I thought it was a good monologue even then, because that was relatable. Like, we all had some stuff that was disrupted by some aspect of COVID or something like that. Or, obviously I haven't had a movie come out or not come out, but I can imagine that was tough, thinking you were going to host SNL and things way beyond your control. You don't get to host almost completely off of a lack of Q rating, right? And it was good then. And then I did not think that he would have this dude in the spot and to have him on stage. Like, it's a monologue you can't reproduce. It was like a moment where it was like, everything just lined up really well. And so for that, almost that alone, that got my spot. But like, even without UPS dude, I thought it was a good, fun monologue, and introduced me to a dude who had been in a bunch of my Instagram stories, not mine, just my timeline. It's like, man, why do they like Glenn Powell so much? Well, now I know.
And it's a really fun story. If you don't remember, Glenn Powell was almost booked to host a few years earlier, and then he was around this UPS guy when he found out that he might get on the show, and it didn't end up materializing. But when he finally did get the show, he committed. He promised, hey, I'm going to bring you to the show. And he did. And I love getting to humanize one of the biggest celebrities in the world. So like I said, definitely a contender here. Rich, are you going to go with what Kirstin and Law chose, or do you have another monologue that you're thinking of?
No, I like the Glenn Powell, although, before doing my research, I was debating between, Jack Black, Five Timers Club, hard to argue against Five Timers Club. Before going back, I would have said Ryan Gosling. I think the bit with Harry Styles was so well done. I loved Alexander Skarsgård. I loved his sort of confidence playing with the band. But going back and watching, I was so surprised that the one that just I thought was the most exciting, funny, fun was actually Ariana Grande. Christmas episode, All I Want for Christmas. What do you get your cousin's boyfriend, Steve? I thought the song was great. She sounded great. It was written great. Everyone coming in, and it was the most Christmassy Christmas. So I'm going off the grid. I think that she really brought it. I think that was my most fun I had watching a monologue this year.
So interesting. Yeah, that one did not make our finalist board, but I still think it's a good contender. There's a lot of support for that Christmas episode, but if you're watching us on YouTube, we do have up our top 5 here, and we talked a lot about Glenn Powell's. Alexander Skarsgård was the 1000th episode monologue, where he goes and talks to and a lot of the people, the SNL band. And we loved that one so much at the time because we kept saying, oh, well, what can they do in the 1000th episode that they didn't do at the 50th? Well, they didn't really do anything for the band. So Skarsgård was fantastic there. Ryan Gosling, you mentioned it. This was actually my pick on my ballot. And maybe I would need to revisit a few more times to realize it wasn't my favorite, but I just enjoyed the moment so much. The vibe that night, it was a bit that had been done before on the show of like, oh, you're sort of distracting me. Why are you taking attention away from me? But just his charisma in that moment, it's hard to replicate how great it was. The fact that Harry Styles had done a concert on Friday night in Manchester and flew in within 24 hours to be there sitting in the audience before he would host the following week. I just loved every minute of that. And it cracked me up. It was so great. Of course, I love Five Timers moments. So Jack Black's is certainly a contender. And then the Will Ferrell, Chad Smith moments that we just had last week, that was also one of the finalists here. So you may ask, which one was the winner? So Kirstin, I'll have you guess who was the best monologue of the season.
Look at that picture of Glenn Powell. Come on. I'm going to say Glenn Powell, but I could be upset, although I won't be upset because I also loved it, but I could be upset by Jack Black.
All right, well, here we go. So the winner of the Carlin, I think I forgot to say before that the cold open we called the Downey, but this we'll call the Carlin for the first ever host of Saturday Night Live, who did 4 monologues that night. So the winner of the Carlin for season 51 with 46.5% of the vote was actually Ryan Gosling. The public at large really loved this monologue, and we had about a little over 1,400 votes come in. So 46.5% said, hey, give me Gosling as the best monologue of the season. Jack Black was actually second, and Glenn Powell was third. So Jack Black, 25% of the votes, Glenn Powell, 13%. I think Glenn Powell and Ryan Gosling should be a lot closer in these results because you could have really gone either way for me. Will Ferrell, about 11% of the vote, and Alexander Skarsgård, about 3.5% of the vote among the finalists. So Kirstin, you think the audience got it wrong here?
Yeah, it's a travesty.
Yeah, seriously. Ryan Gosling does not get enough awards. You guys have to give him another one.
I also love Ryan, but what a moment for Glenn.
Yes.
Next time.
For sure.
Yes.
And look, that's, part of the reason why we did the voting in 2 stages was to just, hey, let's just make sure that we get the candidates on the board that we think are acceptable for the audience to vote between and not be overloaded with just, stands of these individual people. But yeah, I think Ryan Gosling was easily a great contender here and certainly deserving to be considered for best monologue of the season. So a lot of great picks and a lot of fun moments that we've had this year. All right, let's talk about live sketches. So this one, there's plenty to talk about. I think the live sketch category is perhaps the deepest category that we have this season among segments for the show. So Law, I'll start with you. Where did you go with your live sketch pick?
Yeah, we had... So I was a fan of Marcello doing Sebastian Maniscalco this year. I tipped my hand earlier. I like recurring characters and don't see them very often these days. And even that being an impression, it was like, I didn't get the third iteration of it. I after this one with Harry Styles, I was like, surely they bring this back sometime in May before the season is out, and they didn't get around to it. There was no cameo, but I thought this was great. And I thought that Harry Styles basically doing his the audience was hyped just for Harry Styles to be in the sketch. Like that initial pop was pretty cool to hear. Like when you go and look back at it, didn't even know what the sketch was about. And then Harry winds up doing his own Sebastian impression. I thought it was really, especially for a live sketch, I thought it was really good. We had so many damn options, man. I picked one that I liked. So I don't even know if that made the final. I'm pretty sure it didn't. So we had a lot of sketches to pick from. That's one that just stuck out for me.
Yeah, certainly we could ask anybody to come up with 3, 6, 10 of them if we'd like to, of your favorites from the season. There's just so many good choices to choose from. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting pick there. We'll see if any of the other panelists went in that direction. Rich, where did you go for your best live sketch of the season?
So many to go from. I noticed as I was going back, I was amazed how many sketches that I was like, I kind of didn't remember as necessarily being great, like the pilot announcement sketch of JAJ, the Elf on a Shelf support group with Ariana Grande, like a lot of really good sketches. For me, it was a no-brainer. It was the Alexander Skarsgård. It was the mom's confession, where Ashley Padilla reveals that she has realized that Trump is, maybe she made a mistake with Trump. There was a lot of Ashley sketches on my list, and in the moment, and as they came out week by week, I would have said, oh, it's parent-teacher conference, whatever. But I just think this was just gorgeous. It was so relatable. And it's what I always say, I'm a broken record. It was politics, but it wasn't current events. It was tapping into the zeitgeist that no one else had said until they said it that night on live TV. So for me, this was my winner.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about Ashley's domination this season, except for the Matt Damon episode, she really dominated in this live sketch area. So it would make sense if you picked one of hers. I think you can make a best of DVD from this season just of her live sketches. But I'm with you, Rich. I do think that was probably the cleanest, best written version of any sketch that she performed this season on the show. I think that some of the others that she did may have made me laugh more, like Kathy, I think is one that really made me laugh a lot. The haircut sketch, certainly.
The haircut sketch is so great.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones that she did this year. We could do a whole show on it. But I do think Mom's Confession was just the cleanest sketch in the positions that they did. I think I tried to pick it apart that week, and I just was having so much trouble finding anything to really talk about that I didn't like. She's just so amazing. And I think it really hit with a lot of people who don't normally watch Saturday Night Live. And they're like, wait, who is this? And why is this funny? And oh my God, am I finding SNL funny again? Like the amount of people I've seen just say that after. So to me, that was my choice. Kirstin, did you have a different one?
I've got to talk about just a couple top ones. It's not my favorite. I'm going to save that for last. But Experienced Lawyers to me brought me back to the moment in Anchorman 2 when all of the anchor teams were out anchoring each other by way of cameos and ridiculousness. And, can we get one more drop out of this? And they just kept going. And so that one to me was very delightful. It was already weird making fun of, these strange legal ads, and then took it to a completely new level. I also loved Mom's Confession. I watched Rasta Driver today again, and damn, that's good. That to me feels like Dismukes' Emmy reel. But I'm going to go with Haircut, because Ashley has to be in whatever wins. And to me, that felt like the one where people sat up and really took notice. Like that is the one that's a meme. That's the one where I know we're all saying we talk in TV, but we're also saying, I like it. Like, and there's just, as soon as you get some of those catchphrases, that it just stood out. I mean, it was a very simple premise, and it felt very classic in that way. It was, clean. Every performer, I think, was in it, and I could see some that would have broken. It felt very timeless. That could air in any era, I think, and that was also important to me. So I'm rewarding craftsmanship when I reward that one, and Ashley.
I love that. And, for this one, we had to do 9 finalists because there were just so many good choices. So here's the ones that made it across the board to the listeners at large. So we had the Experienced Lawyer sketch. We talked about Pinwheel from Jeremy Culhane in that Nikki Glaser episode at the end with Jeremy and Mikey. Oh, so funny. Rich,
I'm boycotting that one. Boycotting Pinwheel.
Okay, I love Pinwheel.
Come on.
I bought a Pinwheel that week and had it on the roundtable. It was so much fun. Bob Army, obviously, that's the one, the Bobs versus the Bangs. People were just loving that one and talking about it a lot. Speaking of haircut, of course, the ascendance of Ashley Padilla to mainstream. I think you get that there. Mom's Confession, we discussed. Passing Notes is a really interesting one in just an extremely novel way that they went about doing a live sketch with them not having read the notes prior to the live show. So that's one that was up there. My Ex, the Ex Making X Jealous sketch from the Olivia Rodrigo episode. Ross the Driver, we discussed. Probably my biggest laugh of the entire season is Andrew Dismukes just when the song came on and he just started singing. And then 2 Auctioneers, the Sarah Sherman Renaissance, where we got to just see old school Sarah for a moment doing something super creative and different, and Matt Damon and Sarah just tour de force in that sketch between the two.
Last sketch of the night too.
Incredible stuff. Law. Out of the options we have here, which one do you think took it?
I mean, shoot, the recency bias one goes with Auctioneers. I mean, that was just really good, but I felt like Haircut just crossed over in a way that just holds up not just the season, but you're gonna like. That was just so good. And it really, I felt like, made it clear Ashley was going to be one of this era's leading voices. So that is, if out of everything, I would say Haircut was probably the biggest moment as far as live sketches for this season.
So about 2,000 votes came in for this category. Haircut came in second place, 16.1% of the vote, just behind what I think is really interesting choice here for our winning sketch, which was actually the Passing Notes sketch that was chosen from the audience at 18% of the vote. So an extra 2.5% chose Passing Notes over anything else. Obviously, there's the Gosling factor here. A lot of people love Ryan, but I do think that there is something here that night when we were talking about that moment, what made that episode so great was just them trying something new after 51 years that we had never seen before. And I thought that was so cool, Law. So was the audience crazy for this choice?
Nah, it was interesting. I went back and watched this episode, and I don't remember this the first time I watched it. I don't remember if I watched it live or if I got the second West Coast version rerun when I watched. But they had a note saying that the content of the notes has changed since rehearsal. And I don't know if that was that little lower third. I don't know if that was on when they did this the first time. And
it wasn't.
Okay. I don't know how. I genuinely, I'm not saying this.
Oh, sorry. To answer your question, it was on the live show, but of course it wasn't there during dress because the notes had actually changed since dress rehearsal.
Right. So, like I said, I looking back at it, because again, I watched all these episodes again recently. Looking back at it, I was like, I'm not sure how I felt about them notifying me about that, And I almost felt like it was necessary because Ryan Gosling be breaking these sketches, man. It's almost like an accomplishment for Ryan to get through a sketch clean, but everybody was breaking. Like anyone who was reading those notes broke. And perhaps that lower third was a favor to them and a favor to us. It's like, no, they're not like tripping and just like there's a reason for that. And even then, it's like I'm not sure if I wanted that lower third there, but it was funny. It was good. I will say I'm surprised that this is the one that winds up winning it for sketch of the season.
You know, I can kind of see it a little bit because I do think that if you were to extend the vote, which we sort of did to a more casual, larger listenership, I think that those people would be more likely to pass around something, no pun intended, that they never seen before and be like, did you see what SNL tried last night? That was kind of weird. So yes, there are sketches that perhaps maybe were better written, more like interesting in terms of like quality to compare to the things that we'd seen in previous seasons, but I just like that they went for something really novel here, as I said. So I could buy it. I could see what they're going for. I know it's a polarizing sketch, but it was one that I'm glad that they did try. And like I said, according to these people, was the best live sketch of the season. So Passing Notes did come in first place here. Haircut was second with 16.1. I'll read the rest of the list, and then Rich, if you want to jump in, you can. Bob Army came in third place with 13.3%, just ahead of Mom's Confession, which was the fourth out of the 9 choices here. Pinwheel next was fifth with 10% of the vote. Rasta Driver about 9.7, Two Auctioneers 7.6, the My Ex sketch 6.7, and Experienced Lawyers came in ninth place 5.2%. Rich.
It's a great reminder when we say best live sketch, this really was something that only live television can do. That a pre-tape version of them breaking like this is not going to be the same. So I kind of give it to everyone that this is while I thought there were better written sketches and even better performed sketches, this was a cultural moment that only Saturday Night Live can have. And we always say, the breaking on live TV is only funny if we as the audience thinks the jokes are as funny or funnier than the cast member laughing at the jokes. And I do feel like joke for joke, this delivered. This was funny enough that when the cast read the notes live and were laughing, it warranted it. So I give it to the fans. We're remembering that we are a live show in a very pre-taped world that we live in these days.
Certainly, and it's a great point. So thanks for bringing that up. Let's jump over to pre-tapes. This was a weird season for me for pre-tapes. I found it much more difficult to choose on my ballot which was my favorite pre-tape because I feel like it was a little bit messy as far as them figuring out, all right, are we going to do Brad and his dad? Are we going to do a Martin Herlihy? What's the deal with Dan Bula? It sort of felt like just a mix of like, you never know what you're going to get. And maybe that's what the show wants, but it did feel a little bit cleaner the last few years, Rich, in terms of, all right, we know we're going to get a PDD tonight. That kind of feels good. Maybe we'll get a commercial. So for me, there were a few good choices, but it wasn't as strong nearly as the live sketch category.
Yeah, I'll even up that. I would say there's prior seasons where when we would do an episode rundown, my favorite 2 sketches of the night were usually the pre-tapes, and then a live sketch would be third. And while they did a lot of good work in pre-tape this week, I would say it completely flipped. I think there were a lot of pre-tapes that I liked. Most of them did feel a little bit fundamentally flawed in their premises. So I liked them. I didn't love them. I think that the live sketches is where we really shined this year. But definitely there was a lot of good stuff to like here. I would have thought for me, it would have been one of the more recent ones. There are 2 specifically that other people may mention that were very recent that I thought were really strong. But going back, I was surprised how much I really liked the song I Miss My Ex's Dad from the Glenn Powell episode. It was just fun. It kept moving. He was great in it. Everyone in it was great. It was great to see Tommy really take a kind of leading role in a pre-tape. So that, I think for me, that was probably my favorite one so far.
And it feels like that didn't even happen this season because of, just how much we did not see Tommy for the rest of the season. He was on a pretty good run there in the Nikki Glaser and Glenn Powell episodes. And you're like, all right, this is interesting. He's picking up steam here as a stand-up early, just on an update performance. So we'll talk about his season on Wednesday when we do our By the Number show. But yeah, that one was one that I think was pretty well remembered as being a great music video of the season. Kirstin, how did you vote for pre-tape?
I voted for one that I have it's a style soft spot. I voted for Gentleman's Code. I think this whole "how dare you" thing, it was ridiculous, and everyone committed to this really silly world that they created, and believed in them completely. What if this bizarre social code existed? This is one that I wonder if it came up at 3 a.m. as they were discussing it. And then, this amazing crew and team build this entire set and the costumes and everything they did to make this come true is really delightful. I also, you won't be surprised, love Shrimp Tower, Josh Brolin. Like this whole type of, not that I'm a Bridgerton fan, but like this whole type of every team all in, sleeves rolled up type situation. So Gentleman's Code, I think, was really fun. And I think Connor in this one was the perfect host to have in that role.
Yeah, that's one that I think a lot of the audience was looking for and being like, all right, well, where's Gentleman's Code? It was not a finalist that was voted on by the public, but it was one that I think surely was widely considered. Law, how did you vote for pre-tape this year?
Yeah, when you said it was a messy season for pre-tapes, I thought that was a reference to all the blood that was in so many pre-tapes this year. Like, it was just a lot of blood. But I went with the one battle after another action figures because one, you could have seen how that could have been a pre-tape regardless of who hosted, but the fact that Teyana Taylor was in the host of this episode and featured in this pre-tape, and the fact that I don't know about the quality of the movie. It was a good movie, and obviously it was a highly acclaimed movie, and Teyana getting nominated that week, I thought that whole thing was fun. So me watching it in that moment and seeing that movie, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was fun. I totally would have been trying to get one of those action figures 30 years ago. Trying to remember how old I am. Got a lot of them. I thought that was fun. Any season that was there was just a lot of blood in the pre-tapes this year. I felt a void in Please Don't Destroy's era ending. I will say that. Even seeing Martin the 2-3 times or whatever it was, it just felt like I don't know, like he was in purgatory or something.
I'm with you. I miss the PDDs.
Yeah, I didn't think I would miss them, but I do feel like there was no natural succession plan, and maybe they thought it was Herlihy, but we just didn't get a lot of him. I do think the one area that the show excelled at in the limited times that they did it was commercial parodies, which I think they really have gone back to since the 50th anniversary of the show. They tried to do some fun things with them, and my favorite of the season, I did really love One Battle After Another action figures, but my favorite of the season was one of the finalists that we have here as I bring up the board, which was the Tidy Care kitty litter that we had in that Matt Damon episode. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I just feel like everything came together in such a great way in the family dynamics, just turning on themselves as these couple was arguing and then blaming it on their son, and it turns out it was the dog. But really all of the voiceover role that James was doing as the voice of God there that they could somehow talk to at any point, I really felt like it all came together in such a brilliant way. So I really loved that one, and that's the one that I put on my ballot originally. The other finalists that we have here is we have one of the Herlihy pre-tapes, the social experiment one that we got in the Sabrina Carpenter episode from episode 3. We spoke about My Ex's Dad as being a great option here. Cousin Planet is one that people absolutely loved when they got to see. This was sort of the first seeds that we had of like, okay, are Jane Wickline and Veronica maybe a thing? Are they going to help each other out on this show? And we did end up getting a lot of that towards the back half of the season. And then the Home Alone alternate ending, I think that was one that was completely overshadowed, at least in my opinion, or here on the podcast, by Bowen leaving the show and us seeing a lot of these sort of, bloody style pre-tapes that we've had in previous seasons. But just looking at it on its own, it did have a lot of merit for ending up on the ballot. It was really well done. It was based on a type of media that I think most people have seen. So they got all the characters. And I thought that Ariana was really well suited for the Kevin McAllister role. So I think that one certainly was deserving of being the best pre-tape. But Kirstin, as you had said, I want to choose that Connor Storrie one, but it didn't make the finalist ballot. Do you think any of these is well deserving, and which one do you think the audience voted on?
I think the audience probably, first of all, I'm surprised to see Social Experiment. I feel like that's not as much a fan favorite as I would have expected. But I think the audience voted either Home Alone or My Ex's Dad. The likability of Glenn Powell, that one just came together really well. And then Home Alone, you've got almost the whole cast in it, really well produced, lots of blood. I think they chose one of those.
All right. Well, you are right, because those were the two finalists, but the winner for this award with 39% of the vote after over 1,800 votes is the Home Alone pre-tape. They chose that. They loved that one from Ariana Grande. So 39% of the vote goes there. Second place, My Ex's Dad with 23.8% of the vote. We then had The Social Experiment from Martin Hurley, 14% of the vote, just ahead of Cousin Planet, 13%. And then The Tidy Care Kitty Litter, 10% of the vote. That's the one I would have picked. But still, I get why people did really like this one and why it is going to be a memorable one for years to come. Wouldn't be surprised. I mean, does this potentially make the Christmas compilations that they do in future years, as they're starting to look at like new sketches that go in there? I think this one could potentially have a legacy factor moving forward. So not surprised that it got chosen here. All right, let's move on to update features. Interesting year for update, another year for Jost and Shay at the desk, after a lot of people thought they may have departed after the 50th, but looks like they are here to stay for the next little bit. And we had some great update correspondents that came to the desk this year. So Kirstin, how did you feel about them, and which one did you pick on your ballot?
Ooh, there was a lot of great options here to choose from. The standouts for me were Jeremy as Tucker Carlson. It is getting so much attention in the media and online. He nailed it. I proudly don't watch a lot of Tucker Carlson, but I knew just enough to know that he had nailed it. And even if he wasn't doing an impression, the character that it would have been is hilarious, acting fabulous. And then Mr. On Blast is also not for everyone, definitely for me, and very much enjoyed it. I had thought that my number one was going to be the emojis, the Red Heart and Ariel Tramway. But I don't know, today I watched again two people who just hooked up, and I swear they really hooked up. Like it was comedy magic. It was great acting. It was so in the moment. It was awkward to watch. We felt like it was an intimate moment we shouldn't have been witness to. So I think emojis was a cheaper, funnier laugh, and it was really silly, but I'm going to give it to two people who just hooked up.
That was my pick as well. I honestly think that, having chemistry doesn't have to necessarily be like, sexual chemistry or romantic and intimate chemistry, but just chemistry between two cast members that is palpable on screen is something so rare nowadays. You think back of like Belushi and Aykroyd, or Jan Hooks and Phil Hartman, or Dana and Kevin. Like you don't get pairings. Like maybe the most recent one is perhaps Kate and Aidy, but just to see this magical pairing of Andrew and Ashley for those first few episodes, I thought we were on the precipice of like, whoa, these two, I mean, could this give Andrew a second life at the show? It didn't fully materialize as a storyline for the season, but just seeing them together on screen the way that they were there, I thought they were fantastic together. So it would be hard pressed to find anything that would have beaten it after we saw them in episode 4 and then return after or right before the Super Bowl, or maybe right around the Super Bowl. But yeah, I thought that Jeremy obviously had some very interesting update features as a potential other options here. Law, where did you go?
I don't want to encourage more Tucker Carlson material. Like, it feels like when the worst person just makes a great point. But that said, getting a text from one of my friends about the second time Jeremy Colhane came on as Tucker Carlson, I thought, like, man, like, this was fun, and it was before I got to see the episode. I was like, "Don't spoil it." And then I saw the episode, and it was the Matt Damon episode. I had a game cover that night, so I had to watch it a little later. But I mean, it was fun. You had to joke about the anti-Chrysler building. You were talking about the Met Gala, and I didn't realize it had been that long since we had a Met Gala. So, of course, that was great timing too. bring him on there and talk about the extravagance that is the Met Gala, the ASAP Rocky joke, he was on the red carpet wearing my least favorite color. Like it was biting and inappropriate. And it was like, I thought Jeremy was great in that. The fact that it was the second time he did it. Again, I don't like Tucker Carlson. Don't mind not seeing him. But if I got to see him, I'd rather it be Jeremy Colleen presenting it.
And I do think the line of like, that's the goal, that's the rule now, like all of those things, I think that
Colin and Shay sound like they enjoyed that too.
Yeah, I think that people are going to use that for years to come and not even realize it's from SNL with somebody making fun of Tucker Carlson. I think it's just going to be something that's just going to permeate the show. So certainly that has to be a contender here. Rich, who did you pick as the best update correspondent of the season?
I'll agree with everyone. Jeremy as Tucker was amazing. I thought it was great. For me, one of the most fun that we haven't mentioned yet, it was, in the Bowen finale episode, bringing back 80 and him doing the culture. I thought that was so much fun to see them again. But my favorite was unquestionably, I am in the Kirstin John camp. It was the two people who just hooked up. And just to add to what you both said, I won't be redundant, but I will say, here's the magic of them as features. Almost every other feature, the character that comes on, whether it's a raccoon or whether it's Tucker Carlson or Mr. On Blast, is crazy in some way. This is a completely grounded sketch. Neither character, as the feature correspondents, are crazy. It's the situation, the writing, and the gorgeous acting between them and playing of the jokes that makes this so wonderful. So to me, this was no question my favorite.
I'm completely with you. So the finalists for the Stefan, as we call it here, were all ones that we talked about. So we had two people who just hooked up from episodes 4 and 12. We have trend forecasters with 80 Bryant returning to the show. Tucker Carlson, there from episodes 15 and 19. The aerial tramway, the emojis from episode 15. What a great update covered there. And then Mr. On Blast from episodes 11 and 20. So two Jeremy picks on the board, as well as Andrew Dismukes, Ashley Padilla, 80 Bryant, Bowen Yang, Mikey Day, and Marcelo Hernandez. So a lot of great coverage here. So, Kirstin, which one won this award?
Oh, that's tough. These are really good. Ooh, I mean, I'm going to say a Jeremy because he's in there twice.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see as we get to talk about after 1,900 votes. The winner of the Stefan this year is Tucker Carlson, 30.5%, just ahead of the emojis at 29.1% of the vote. So Tucker Carlson there comes in. And I get that. I still feel like two people who just hooked up would be my best update correspondent, as I feel very similar to the panel here. But this one is going to be the one that people are going to be talking about. And how cool is it for SNL to get a political impression that is desk exclusive? Don't put this in the cold open. Have this be a desk thing. It works so well in the place that they have it. So I wouldn't futz around with this too much as we see it again in 52. But emojis came in second. Mr. On Blast came in third with 23.4%. And then two people who just hooked up was in fourth, 13.7%, followed by the trend forecasters with just 3% of the vote there. So congrats to Jeremy there, who wins the award as Tucker Carlson for best update correspondent. Okay, let's talk about a fun aspect.
Just give it up for the chat really quick because they are just cracking me up right now with, as soon as that got announced, that's the rule then, because that's the goal now. Like I have enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I do love it. See, and that's probably why I won. It's just too quotable. All right, let's get into an area that we don't talk about too much here on our roundtables, but just for fun, very subjective voting. But let's talk about best musical performance of the season. Law, was there anything that stood out to you as the best musical performance?
First of all, gotta give a little shout out to NPR. They always do this ranking of the musical guests, and for someone who really likes the music on SNL, I so appreciate it. and it's absolutely it's like a retweet that is not an endorsement. Like, I'm not saying like I agree with their picks. I agree with the work that they put in to actually showcase the fact that Saturday Night Live is a variety show that features a musical guest every week. It's like, that aside, I had a hard time picking one. We're gonna get into finalists that I don't know if I would have picked, but I picked a musical performance that wasn't a finalist. So touche to my previous point about acknowledging the forum and not necessarily agreeing. I love Doja Cat. I love Doja Cat's first performance in particular. Her second one just made you realize just how versatile she is. But I mean, that was the first musical performance of the season. Obviously, Bad Bunny was chilling. He had done the season finale of season 50 and was going to do the Super Bowl, as he let everybody know. They had a few months to learn Spanish. Doja Cat could easily wind up hosting at some point, but I thought she was great. I thought the music was great. I thought her performance was great. I thought she sounded great. I thought it was a great tone setter to I thought a pretty good season of musical performances on the show.
And that's a good pick, because we were talking about at the end of the season, once they had Olivia do double duty of like who could be the future double duty host and musical guest that we could get on the show. And we were talking about Noah Khan, but I think that Doja Cat is certainly a great option and had a very solid performance at the start of the year. Rich, what about you? Any musical guests that you were like, oh man, that performance was unreal and should definitely be the one that wins this award?
Yes. Now, of course, the caveat is asking me for my musical opinion is like asking me for dieting advice. Why would you listen to me? I'm probably more of a Jack White, Noah Khan, Paul McCartney guy, although I've become a pretty big Olivia Rodrigo fan from her last album. And that said, the person who I had zero interest listening to on Saturday Night Live, and for me was my favorite of the season by a lot, was Sabrina Carpenter Manchild. I thought the performance, the staging, the band on the stage, it was it was a fun song. I'm not a huge Sabrina Carpenter fan, but the song was great. I thought it was great energy, and I thought it was one of the most. It was really fun watching her have fun perform that song.
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a Sabrina Carpenter fan, but I became such a bigger Sabrina Carpenter fan after seeing that performance. I voted for the exact same one as you, Rich. I was watching that and I felt like I was watching a music video live. And I know a lot of people go for that on SNL with incredible set design, but just seeing her in her bedroom performing all of this, the song was stuck in my head for days. And I was like, you know what? There's a lot of times where it's not that I don't care about the musical performances, but I do feel like music is sort of like the cherry on top to an amazing show, live comedy show that takes place every single Saturday night. And it's very rare when I'm like, oh, I have to go back and rewatch this one. And I really did feel that way about Manchild. So for me, that's where my vote went on my original ballot. Kirstin, what about you?
My choice is someone who, I don't know, I'm very excited when I see artistry. Like I see more of an expression of not just song, but kind of fashion and performance and, dance. And so for me, that performance that stood out was A$AP Rocky, Punk Rocky in particular. It was very much like a fully realized kind of, live performance, this identity that came through. I mean, all the little details with the fashion and the styling and the set decoration and all the kind of characters that the dancers were fulfilling in the background. You have Danny Elfman, you have Thundercat. A lot of the times artists really do just kind of, they stand in some mood lighting, or it's like a touring version of the song. But people like Sabrina's performance and like this one felt theatrical in a way. It felt very intentional. It felt very composed, not just by way of the song, but by way of what everything about it sensorially was going to deliver. So I love that he treated it like a visual medium and not just a concert stop. I would argue that Sabrina did as well, and I have a feeling she's going to be the one who wins this, but I'm giving it up to A$AP Rocky. He also flew through the wall at the end. So
that's very true.
Yes.
And, I always feel like the first episode after the new year is a bit of a black hole for SNL where they just, things get lost. You don't really remember it as you're like coming back from the long holiday break and they're still trying to get their footing. But I do feel like there are some moments from that Finn Wolfhard episode that I want to revisit, including these performances, because Aesop was awesome here. So let's go over the finalists that we had here, the final 5, as was chosen by all of our patrons and podcasters. So here we go. We talked about Sabrina Carpenter's Man-Child from episode 3. Olivia Dean was unbelievable. Talk about an emerging artist. I mean, she to me had some great performances, sounded amazing in episode 6. Man I Need was chosen. We just talked about A$AP Rocky with Punk Rocky. Gorilla's very cool performance. You're like, okay, well, if you haven't seen them perform live before, how are they going to do this? Most time you got to watch them animated, and they perform Clint Eastwood, and just so many good moments with Gorillas from episode 14. And then Paul McCartney, obviously the legacy of having him at the show on that final week. He performed 3 songs live on the show, a couple more after the show, but Band on the Run was chosen as the performance to be considered here. So Law, where do you think the audience went with their choice?
I want to say real quick, exactly 10 of the musical guests wound up being in sketches this year. And I think that there's a certain commentary there about how the show blends. Obviously I'm counting double duty hosts, but I thought that was pretty interesting. And with that said, I feel like the Sabrina Carpenter performances definitely helped that she hosted, but I feel like Man-Child's going to wind up winning this one.
Yeah, I think you made a good choice there. So with about 1,000 votes that came in for musical performance, Man-Child by Sabrina Carpenter is the big winner here with over 42% of the vote. A lot of people loving this performance. And I do feel like Sabrina, I mean, I think that we talk a lot about like, who's the next Timberlake when we think about Double Duty. Like, I think she's a great contender. Episode was fantastic. Her doing this on a double duty night where she's also hosting the show, you got to give her bonus points for being able to pull this off. So great performance there. Olivia Dean's Man I Need comes in second with 23.3%. Clint Eastwood by Gorillaz, 16.5% of the vote in third there. Band on the Run by Paul McCartney, 12.4%. And then 5.3% of the vote goes to Punk Rocky by A$AP Rocky, but still there in the top 5. So great job to Sabrina. Congratulations. An amazing performance there by Sabrina Carpenter. All right, so we're talking about aspects of an episode. Let's talk about the best episode of the season as we're going through here. So which overall episode did we feel like was the one that, you'd recommend maybe people to watch, or you think was just the best that all came together? Rich, which one did you pick?
I'm going really off the grid on this one. If you had asked me before I went back and started checking back in, this one wouldn't have made my top 10. But I'm going to say, pound for pound, I think the Miles Teller episode was the best episode. It was the most solid, consistent. It was just hit after hit after hit. So I doubt it made anyone else's list, but if I was going to say to anyone, here's the sleeper episode that you forgot about or you missed, go back and watch Miles Teller. It was really good.
That's such an interesting one. I feel like that one is a little bit polarizing, only in that Miles isn't the overwhelmingly out there host where you're watching it. And maybe that's just so great for a lot of people because then he blends in with the cast really well. But I love the pick here because there were definitely strong elements from that episode. So that's one certainly on the board to consider. Kirstin, how about you? Which episode are you looking at as the best episode of the season?
Oh, it's there. I've got a couple top ones. The 2 top ones for me are surprise, Glenn Powell, but also Coleman Domingo was absolutely delightful. And I know he's a great actor. I've seen him on television and such, but I didn't know how playful he was. And if you go into a Glenn Powell episode, you have a better idea of what to expect because you know him, but Coleman was so surprising to me in the fashion sketch. Holy smoke. So I think it had a lot of range without kind of like, whiplash in terms of tone. He just kind of fit all of these different characters they built, playing this kind of old professor or this, fashionista, Law Roach inspired person. Everything felt like it belonged to the same night. So it felt very cohesive and the lineup felt right. And I love that the cast felt really relaxed. They felt confident around him. And so I think that says a lot about the type of performer and person and actor he is, and his generosity with his time and with the cast. So all of these things add up to why Coleman Domingo is my choice.
That makes sense. I mean, I think there's a lot of great debate about host versus episode. And I think for me, I probably lean more host than episode for Coleman's, where I feel like he elevated a lot of material that another host wouldn't have done so great with. But I can buy that if you just, look at the episode in totality, is certainly a contender. So Law, how about you? Which one did you pick for best episode?
I went with the Christmas episode. I thought it was a lot of good energy. It was obviously Bowen's last show. There's a lot for a lot of people to do. Like, you saw a lot of people in the monologue. You saw a lot of people in the random duet Christmas episode. So a lot of people got their impressions off. I thought, getting 80 to come in and do trend forecasters with Bowen, I thought that was great. I didn't think Cher's musical performances were great, but also Cher's like 80, so like cut her some slack. Like, the fact that she was there was this cool, I thought like it was really good. And for a, that's as close as we got to sending a cast member off, I thought that was particularly memorable. I thought it was a good way to end 2025. And just looking back, picking one episode, I'm sure we'll get to the host episode conversation. I'm very interested in that one. But I picked this as the episode. I have a different thing in mind for the host.
Yeah, I think it's a good choice for sure. I just, I struggled with this one a lot. This is what I had the hardest time with. And I think it was just because I like this season more than any other season we've covered so far on the podcast, but it's because week to week, I have found the show so consistently good to great that I actually haven't found an episode that I look back on and I'm like, wow, this was as high as maybe some of the episodes with seasons I don't like as much, if that makes sense. I feel that there's higher highs and lower lows in some of the last few years, and this was just maybe more consistent. Saying all that, I had three contenders I was looking at that probably had the most consistent episodes from start to finish. And I think Amy Poehler was one that I really loved. I thought that her episode was so great, and just she brought such a great energy to the show. And I felt like that Bad Bunny episode was really rough, and she put the season back on track for me. So I think that was one that I really well considered. I think Glenn Powell, of course, came in, and just most of that episode was so strong. So he's one to consider there. And then Ryan Gosling, who, again, I know that this episode is not for everybody, but for me, there was a certain energy that night that I was like, oh, are we going to do this? Is this where we're going to go with him? But then it was just fun. Like, I just really had the best time watching his episode. So I think all three were really strong contenders for me. Ultimately, I think I'm going to lean Poehler. She's one of my favorite cast members of all time. I do think that even though I put her in my top 10, I think she's underrated as an overall like threat to the GOAT conversation. I think that she's done so much in bad seasons or rough seasons of the show to make episodes better. And I do feel like she was the perfect host to come in here on the actual 50th anniversary of the show, October 11th, 2025, and settle this season. So without her there, does this season end up being as good as it is? That was my pick. So here are the ones that did make it to the finalist board, though. And here we go for best episode this season. Amy Poehler's was not there, but Sabrina Carpenter's the next week was. So that was an option there. Glenn Powell and Olivia Dean's episode was the next one on the board. Ariana Grande and Cher, we talked about. Ryan Gosling and Gorillas. And how about Jack Black and Jack White? That was one that, the black-white combo, Rich, was one we were very excited about. Of course, him joining the Five Timers Club. So how do you feel about these finalists, and which one made it in the end?
I loved all 5 episodes. I called out sketches and I think in almost all of these. I'm going to say Ryan Gosling. I think that it was the most fun, pound for pound fun, if not funniest episode. I think we all, so I think that sticks with us more than anything else. I'm going to go Gosling.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I do think that one was probably made the most sense out of these across the board. With Poehler not being there, I was like, All right, let's go with Gosling. And Gosling was the choice from the audience here. So best episode with over 30% of the vote was Ryan Gosling with Gorillas. And then that was followed by the Jack Black episode with 22% of the vote. About 1,400 votes came in for this one. Ariana Grande's Christmas show was in third place, 21% of the vote, followed by Sabrina Carpenter's 14.5%. And then Glenn Powell's came in fifth place with 11.5% of the vote. So Ryan Gosling, Gorillas, voted as the best episode, according to the fans, for this one. All right, we were talking about host versus episode, so let's jump over to host as we talk about which host really came through the season as the best host of the season. So Kirstin, I'll start with you. Which one do you think was the best host from all of our 20 that we had this year?
You're going to hear me repeat myself quite a bit because I'm going to go back to it's either Glenn Powell or Coleman Domingo. I usually would pick a Jack Black or a Ryan, but I think they've had better episodes. Oh, these are both so good. And I really think we're going to see a lot more of both of them because of it. So their names will continue to come up. Oh, are you really going to make me choose? Okay, so let's see. All right, okay. Coleman, commitment, great with the cast. Same with Glenn, though. Looking at my notes here. Oof, he treated every sketch like it was the most important of the night, and Coleman like respected each sketch that way, even when he was dressed up like a, you know, some Power Rangers-y type person. Glenn Powell, you know, laughs at himself, I should say. Both of them, Glenn Powell especially, looked like they could be 5-timers already. Holy smokes. Glenn Powell, Coleman Domingo. I can't tell. I don't know.
Which one did you pick in the end?
I don't know. I thought I'd fool you and I wouldn't tell.
All right. Well, I'll pick for you. I'll pick Glenn Powell because I think that Coleman Domingo was fantastic. But I say Glenn Powell for me was the host that I watched the season that I most said has to come back in a future season. I just think that can't be it for Glenn Powell. He was too good in that episode. I want to see him come back and build on that legacy. So for me, maybe Coleman Domingo, if we got him like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we had that discussion a lot that week. But I just feel like Glenn Powell, we could be looking at the next great SNL host here. Law, I'm going to send it over to you. Which host do you think is deserving of this award?
Hey, man, it was not a great episode, but Coleman was a great host. I mean immediately. And I don't know if we'll get another Coleman Domingo episode. He got mad things to do, which he spelled out in his monologue. But from the time the band stopped playing, it was his show. Like, and not in a pretentious, I'm a sound like I watched a lot of SNL, not in a Milton Berle kind of way. Like, he owned that material, man. Like, he made it clear that he knew how to, you know, come in on Tuesday and act on Saturday night. Like, it was a whole vibe. Like, and everything he was in, again, it wasn't the greatest writing, the greatest sketches, but he was just so good in everything. And it was just weird. I want to see another thing in the Knowledge Hour just to see how they make that look a second time. It was just, it was so out there. It just felt like a different experience watching him. It was great. I remember we were talking about SNL UK briefly earlier this month and how they had Hannah Waddingham hosting and how great she was, and you could see her talent just come through and permeate the screen. That's how I felt watching Coleman Domingo, and I ain't saying that just because he's from West Philly either.
Yeah, he was so great. And honestly, we didn't give out a what the fuck award for best WTF moment of the year, but that moment of him just messing up in that live sketch and just pointing to the wrong person and then going to the next one, like, one of my favorite moments of the entire year, just getting to see that. I don't know if anyone watched Survivor, just like watching Jeff Probst screw up on live television during the finale last week was like oh my God, watching this live is the best thing ever. I just love live television. There's nothing like it. So for me, that was an awesome moment, a great recovery there from Coleman. Shows you why he's totally deserving and good candidate for this award. But Rich, did you go with that choice or did you pick another one?
I did not. I mean, what I love is our difference of opinion. We all had things to hit differently for me. That I should revisit the Coleman episode because the sketches didn't land for me as nearly as much. So he didn't flag for me personally. You know, I looked at the episodes and I was saying to myself, all right, how do you decide? Because we have personal favorites. I said to myself, all right, what episode had the most number of sketches that I laughed at predominantly because of the host? And for me, and I would never have guessed this coming into the season, it was Matt Damon. I laughed at the cold open because of Matt Damon. I laughed at the auctioneers because of Matt Damon. I laughed at the kitty litter sketch because of Matt Damon. I thought he delivered probably more than everyone else as far as who made me laugh. I put Ryan Gosling in a bit of a different category because that was sort of it was the party trick episode. So I'm sort of torn between those two, but I'm going to go Matt.
I think it's a great choice as well. Totally out of the box because I did not expect much from Damon. I didn't think he would be a bad host. I just thought he would be forgettable. Yeah. And I don't think he was. So I think that's why that's interesting there. He wasn't a finalist for this award, but still, I'm glad that you mentioned him. So we spoke about Amy Poehler before, but certainly, I went with her for episode, but I think you could easily go for her with host. I think that she was an amazing host at the start of the season. Glenn Powell, we discussed. Gosling, certainly. And I think, we're not talking a lot about Jack Black tonight, but I think Jack Black had a really good night. I mean, Carry On Wayward Son with that sketch was one that I think was a really fun sleeper moment of the season that I don't want to forget about. So I think that he's one to consider. And then, of course, Coleman Domingo, an amazing host here across the board. So a lot of great candidates to choose from. Rich, your pick wasn't on the board, so I'll let you say which one you think the audience ended up going with.
I'm going to go Ryan Gosling because he was so infectious too. I remember that I loved Glenn. But I think he's the one that people remember the most because it was a memorable, fun night.
Right, for sure. And just like Project Hail Mary next year when he's in award season, Ryan Gosling is cleaning up tonight as he won the best host of the season from the fans with over 40% of the vote came in for Gosling. I think just like I said, people loved his episode. It was infectious. I certainly, and I'm on board that I think it was one of the best of the season. It's just so polarizing for people to decide if this is what they want from Saturday Night Live. So I can understand if you're watching tonight and you're like, hey, this Gosling stuff is not for me. I don't agree with this. I love that you feel that way. Passion is what makes SNL so great. But maybe you did just fall in love with the infectious laughter and enjoy getting to see a Gosling episode. He certainly has established a well-regarded brand for himself among people at the show. So we will see him for the fifth time, I'm sure. So 40% of the votes for Gosling. Amy Poehler did come in second place, so I'm happy about that. 19.2% of the vote. Coleman Domingo, we talked about as a great candidate. Third place here, 15.8% of the vote, followed by Jack Black, 13.8%, and Glenn Powell, 11%. I do think it should have gone to Glenn just personally, but I get it. There's a lot of people voting for this award. Over 1,500 people came in for the best host for season 51. All right, let's talk cameos from the season. That's something we haven't talked about. It was a year of interesting cameos that we had across the board. A lot of them were in the cold open. But Law, which one do you feel like was the best cameo of season 51?
Yeah, I just did. I did by the numbers, and Red Hot Chili Peppers is my favorite band. So seeing Chad Smith in Will Ferrell's spot, I wasn't expecting that, especially at that point, maybe some time ago or whatever. But I also didn't connect Chad Smith to Paul McCartney, helping him out, when on the music stage. But I love that Chad Smith and Will Ferrell are like boys. They can be doppelgangers in the same spot. And I'm glad SNL gave us the privilege of those two being in the same room instead of us, wondering if Will and Chad have ever been in the same room together. So I know there were a lot of cameos, a lot of great ones, a lot more responsibility for some other cameos, but this was my vote, and I went with Chad Smith. I thought it was super great moment, and honestly a great performance too.
It was a really great moment. You always look at finales to think about, okay, who's going to show up, who's going to join the festivities here. And Chad Smith was not on my bingo card for this finale, but he was there and he came out. And it's been a long, long time since we've seen someone come out instead of the host there to start off the monologue. And just a great moment there between Chad and Will Ferrell. Rich, how are you feeling about cameos this season?
A lot of good ones. You know, for me to judge, I feel like I have to balance who balances both the big reaction when the person is revealed and then delivers the comedy so that at the end of the cameo, I'm still just as excited. For me, both on Weekend Update, you know, certainly when Amy Poehler hosted, having Tina Fey and Seth Meyers show up for the joke off was really, really high for me, although it didn't deliver as much as I would like. I'm going to be a broken record. I'm going to go 80 Bryant showing up for the Bowens goodbye, doing the culture correspondence, whatever it's called, I'm forgetting. I thought it was Trendford, thank you. I mean, I loved that sketch when they did it back when 80 was on the show, or that feature. So I thought it was so fun because A, 80's back, B, we know it's Bowen's last show, and C, it was funny. It was funny to every joke was funny in that. So at the end of that episode, I was just like, oh my God, I miss 80 so much. So that's my call.
Yeah, it was cool to see her. We saw her at the 50th briefly, but she's somebody who I think we haven't talked about very much since she left the show a few years ago. And it was such a nice full circle moment to have, you know, Bowen and 80 together during 80's last episode, and then again together for Bowen's. One of my favorite moments of the entire season. So definitely a great candidate there. Kirsten, where did you go with your cameo vote?
I love cameos. I know that can be something people don't like. I love them. I went with one that in this case felt very unexpected. I think a lot of times we wonder if someone's going to show up. You know, Connor's story, we all wondered, you know, if his heated rivalry co-star was going to be there. You know, Amy shows up. We wonder if Tina's going to be there. And so we have an idea of what might happen. When Will Forte showed up for MacGruber, holy smokes. Like that, I think my jaw was on the ground. And there was this instant level of comfort because I thought, oh, he's in this character that I know, that I love. He's a performer that I know and that I love. This is one of the best ways to create a formulaic sketch where there are certain ingredients and you mix them up and you change some things up, but it's always fun. They've been very successful in replicating the premise of it and the structure of it. You get it 3 times per episode usually, so that's another fun experience in the MacGruber kind of when they inject it into a show. So Will Forte, who's one of my favorite all time. I think, John, we share this, don't we? Our love for Will Forte.
Absolutely.
It's mythology when he shows up. Like it's another level. And so the audience isn't just reacting because they recognize the person. It's like memory, and it's, you know, sentimental almost to see this person in there. And I feel like Will doesn't come back to the show enough. So it's very special also.
It was really so special to get to see him. And when he did MacGruber, when he hosted back in 2022, I think people were like, oh, okay, like, is this as good as when we seen it when he was a cast member? He was promoting the MacGruber TV series. And I don't know, there was just something about this time that felt magical. And in the Powell episode, which was already really strong, and I think that Powell is such a big fan of Saturday Night Live, that was my pick as well. It's just so great to see Forte whenever he does show up. And I think that was an unexpected great moment there. Tina Fey was also on the finalist board as somebody in, you know, sort of like a pseudo co-host of the Poehler episode there, you know, having Tina and Amy so much fun as a part of this 50th anniversary show that we had for episode 2. We spoke about Forte and 80 Bryant. Aziz Ansari is the other one that made this finalist board as Kash Patel. Honestly, just like a perfect pick to cast as Kash Patel. Naturally, you know, the lack of diversity on the show limits the ability to have somebody play Kash in the cast. But Aziz is the one that you're like, oh, would they ever do that? That would be kind of cool. He hosted once, but he's never been back at the show. And I thought that he crushed it, and he did so well that they brought him back for episodes 19 and 20 as well. So between those 4 and Chad Smith, those are the finalists here. So Law, I'm going to give you the opportunity to guess which one won the award from the audience.
Well, yeah. Well, you guys know I had Chad. I did not pick that anticipating that it would even be a finalist, let alone the pick. If I had to say for one, I'm going to I would guess Tina Fey, because she came in and did what Tina Fey did, and also not that she's getting credit for this particular episode, but she also was in the 5-timer sketch as well. So she did,
and she
come
hosted
back
the first
multiple
episode of
times.
SNL UK this year too. So it was a big year for Tina with Saturday Night Live. But here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the winner of Best Cameo of season 51. And it is Aziz Ansari got it here, which was, a little bit of surprise for me, but I'm happy about it. I think he was so great. I don't know if we're going to see him play Kash Patel next year. Like, I don't know if that's going to be part of the political zeitgeist at that point, but yeah, there you go. Aziz comes in and wins the Best Cameo Award late in the season with 1,500 votes. 35% of those went to Aziz. About 21.5 went to Tina. 17.5 go to Forte. 14 go to 80, and about 11.5 to Chad Smith. So there you go. Aziz Ansari, Best Cameo of season 51. All right, we got 3 categories left for our award show that we have here tonight. We saved the best for last. So these are the 3 individual cast awards to talk about. And we're going to start with Rookie of the Year here. So obviously only 5 candidates to choose from, 5 rookies this season. We ultimately went with 2 finalists here. But Rich, of the 5 originals, who was your pick for Rookie of the Year?
Again, the recency bias going into this was clearly Jeremy. He's the one cast. I really knew him from Dropout before he started. So many good things. But going back and looking at the season as a whole, I'm going to give it to Veronica. I think Veronica was really strong. She had some really funny moments. She was a utility player. I wouldn't argue any of these names, but I'm going to go Veronica.
Okay, Kirstin, do you think that Veronica, our Canadian other friend, was the Rookie of the Year, or Jeremy, or maybe one of the others?
It was a toss-up for me between Veronica and Jeremy. So I think Jeremy had a bit more of a traditional kind of growth, right? Like early season, he's more utility. Then all of a sudden, mid-season, you're like, oh, he can do some weird stuff. And end of season, he's like popping up everywhere, and we're like, naturally, this is how it should be. That's the goal. And he has that kind of improv skill set that we love at SNL. Veronica came on strong. She's confident. She was ready for the show. So like you felt her voice immediately. But I liked that Jeremy, for me, can do both. He can disappear into characters, but also really stand out. And we saw him evolve in real time. So for me, those were some great Rookie of the Year moves, and I will give this to Jeremy.
Law, pardon the basketball talk for anyone who doesn't care for a moment, but I will just say, I feel like SNL season 51 Rookie of the Year was so similar to the basketball NBA Rookie of the Year discussion this year, where we had 2 candidates. One was pretty obvious, and then one kind of came out of nowhere, and then it kind of went back to the obvious one. So in the NBA, it was Cooper Flagg was the one who was like, all right, he's for sure going to win this. And then Colin Knippel came out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, wow, he could potentially win this. And then Cooper Flagg was the right choice in the end. And I feel like that's what happened with Jeremy and Veronica, where for me, Jeremy was the obvious pick from the start. Veronica starts coming out of nowhere, where halfway through the season, she's really making a mark for herself, and Jeremy falls back. But for me, Jeremy at the end of the season locks this up with those last few episodes. So that was my pick. Did you have the similar thought when you were going through this?
I'll tell you what, man, I had to make a vote between those 2 and all the other rookies for Rookie of the Year. So I appreciate the analogy, and I want to give a shout out to Ben Marshall. Like, I treated him like a rookie this year, and if we were doing this in January, I might have went with Ben, honestly. I feel like Bowen Yang's departure was, I thought the biggest beneficiary to Bowen leaving was Jeremy Colhane. I feel like Jeremy was already showing that he was, comfortable in this setting, but then he started to be utilized a lot. He took over the JD Vance impression from Bowen, and all of those weekend update spots that we just saw were finalists worthy. All of them happened after Bowen left the show. I'm not saying he's the next Bowen, Like, don't put that on me. In his own, merit, I feel like Jeremy, he did the best job filling whatever void existed from Bowen's departure, and so two completely different players, but in terms of like usage and opportunity, I thought Jeremy knocked it out the park. So that was my pick for rookie of the year.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did mention Ben. I do think he had some moments where he popped this year. It just wasn't consistent enough for me. So that's why that these two were the final two candidates to pick from. They felt like the two obvious choices for rookie of the year. So it was a contentious battle to find out who was going to be the actual rookie of the year. But ultimately, the rookie of the year with 71% of the vote was, with over 2,000 votes coming in, Jeremy Colhane, who came in at the end and did lock this thing up. I think he's going to be a cast member that's going to be around for years to come. I don't know if he took the Bowen role. That's an interesting thought, Law. I'm going to think about that a little bit more because I might make an argument for somebody else in just a little bit with one of these other categories. But I do think that he definitely solidified a great place in this cast and seems like someone that they're very glad that they found to be a part of this next era. Last year, I would have said the same thing about Ashley Padilla. I would have said rookie of the year, someone that you want to go to Vegas right now and put your money on. Could we be talking about a Jeremy, like an Ashley-like season for Jeremy next year? I think it's something to think about. So I think he's going to be a huge part of 52. And congrats to Jeremy for rookie of the year for season 51. All right, let's talk MVP. Let's do the MVP voting right here. So a lot of candidates across the board between all of the cast members to potentially be the most valuable player of season 51. Kirstin, which one did you pick?
I picked Ashley Padilla. I picked her because I think she played a huge role in stabilizing and being almost like that gel in between everything, the glue in between everything for the cast. She stood out among ensembles in a still very ensemble-like way. She, again, this connective tissue, like that's what just keeps coming to mind for me, is just how much she kind of raised the game with not just reading lines, but really bringing some of the acting back into it. I don't know if I'm capturing that right, but like everyone's talked about the Padilla pause, but like not just, it's not a cue card thing. It's like taking the moment to find the moments and developing a character as, from a mom into this fully, you imagine she's got this whole backstory for her. You could tell that the writers were starting to trust that she could carry more so early. So it wasn't just, here's her line, here's her joke. She could carry the tone of something and the energy of something, which is a huge ask. While a lot of people, I think, pull a lot of weight, she very much made most of the top sketches and made them work. She had a season where she has been in almost everything that I love and is playing a massive role in improving those. And she, I don't know, week to week, she was consistent as well. Like we were always excited to see her on screen. And I think there are some cast members in the past, and this is not a critique, but you get to know them and their mannerisms for a certain type of thing. And she feels like there is so much more to see. So she's my MVP.
I'm totally with you. I wonder if this is a question that Law and Rich would have another candidate for, but there are most valuable episode moments for other candidates throughout the entire season, but it's just hard to argue against what Ashley did in this one singular year where she came out and showed me why I love this show so much. I just think that her potential for growth, for making this era the next great one, it was something that I haven't seen in years on this show. And I just was so excited to see her week after week, Law, turning on the TV and seeing what she can do. Was she your vote as well?
Yeah. Not only was she my vote, like, it was funny that Amy Poehler hosted that October 11th episode. She's the last cast member to be promoted from feature to repertory in the middle of a season. I thought we were going to get that from Ashley Padilla. That's how good she was. We didn't get that. She's going to be the MVP. I don't really have a whole lot to add to what Kirstin already said.
Certainly. We'll talk about her numbers on Wednesday during our Final By the Numbers show, but first featured player to ever lead the cast in sketch appearances. She led the cast in screen time. Just a dominant year here for Ashley. Rich, was that your vote as well?
So going back to the very first episode of the season 51, we're post 50, Bad Bunny, some very pleasant sketches, but generally a pretty rough episode. And it was kind of like it was waiting to get into gear. We're almost at the goodnights, and we get this parent-teacher conference sketch where suddenly Bad Bunny is used perfectly. Ashley Padilla plays the principal who suddenly has a crush on the dad of the kid who wants to kill her. She showed more range in that one sketch than any other cast member had been allowed to do or was written for across the entire episode of that night. And you just saw this moment of, oh, this is going to be Ashley's season. This is something we haven't seen in a while. So yes to everything you said, but let's also make sure we call out her range, that she can anchor a sketch as the crazy person, even, the old person on the scooter in the dating sketch with Josh, up to, the sketches we talked about tonight, the bad haircut, so I think her range of being able to play very grounded and very crazy and kind of everything in between, plus be a straight person, be a supporting character, not pull the fart sketch. I mean, there's so much funny. So yeah, to me, it's no question. This was I wish I had an alternate hot take, but how can you argue this was her season?
No, I want you guys to all be real. And 100% of the panel thinks that Ashley Padilla was the MVP, but not 100% of all of our patrons and podcasters felt that way, and not 100% of our audience. So we do have 5 candidates that were given as finalists to the audience. So I'll just go through the alternative choices that were presented here. And one of them was Mikey Day, who did come back and had a very strong veteran season in the second half and was very much a part of, even this past episode with Will Ferrell has a big moment there. So as far as value is concerned, I think the show really values Mikey, and he still does produce a lot of great sketches. I think he's an incredible writer and one of the greatest writers probably ever in the show's history. So James Austin Johnson, I think, expanded his wings this year. I don't think he was just doing the Trump stuff, so his value to the show certainly did increase, and he was a candidate. Colin Jost was not only used on Update, was probably used the most amount ever off of Update that we've seen in his entire career, as he was very much a part of the cold opens. He appeared in a live sketch, he appeared in a pre-tape, so he had more range this year than we've ever seen before, and definitely was a candidate for MVP. And then Sarah Sherman, another great one to consider there, had some really good moments towards the end of the season, and ultimately made the top 5 for finalists. So MVP of season 51. Big congratulations to, of course, Ashley Padilla, who did win this one going away. She was the season MVP, no doubt about it. Over 65% of the vote, with over 2,000 votes came in. Over 65% of the vote did go to Ashley Padilla. You may be curious who came in second place. The MVP second place vote actually went to Colin Jost. So he was one that a lot of people did consider for MVP. James Austin Johnson, 8% of the vote. Sorry, Colin, 14%. James Austin Johnson came in third with 8.2%. Sarah with 6.7%. And then Mikey was in fifth out of these 5 finalists for 5.1% of the vote. So big congratulations to Ashley Padilla, who ultimately won MVP for season 51. All right, our final category. This is where it gets interesting, because we have Breakout Player of the Season here. And this is somebody who maybe you didn't expect to be as great as they were and ultimately turned into that. And because Ashley Padilla won MVP, she is no longer eligible for Breakout Player of the Year. So I'm going to ask you all for your picks. You can say, you voted for Ashley, but she can't win this award anymore. So you may have to pick somebody else. Law, I'm going to ask you, who was your breakout player of season 51?
Yeah, I didn't even consider Ashley. I'm surprised 65%. I mean, I would have expected her to get the 70% water vote there. But all that aside, who you said came in second was my breakout pick, Colin Jost. I mean, you saw Colin in half the sketches in the cold opens, obviously 12th year on Weekend Update. I thought I thought he was really good. Like it was refreshing to see how good he was, even if the roles were limited. I still felt like that was worthy of a breakout. Um, even if we can be real, the MVP was also the breakout player of the year. But I don't want to still con Joe Shine. Like I thought, for given the fact that this is his 12th season, for him to get what he got this year, even if it was mainly just one impression, I thought it was impressive. I thought he was legitimately good. So still want to know when that clock ends on update, but I thought he was my clear breakout if it wasn't going to be Ashley.
It totally makes sense. I mean, it was a very big surprise where we open up the season and we see him being a large part of the cold open. I see a question from the chat about could rookies counted. We didn't put rookies as an option on the original form for breakout because there was no history to show that they didn't break out in previous years, and now this year was their breakout. So it was really only anyone who was a second year player or above, and then we would eliminate the MVP voting winner after that. So Rich, who did you pick for your breakout player of the year?
You know, if you had asked me after episode 5, I would have said Colin. For me, I felt like there was too much Colin, too much Pete Chegsef, and in other sketches he showed up, I would rather have seen some of the existing cast. So I was going back and forth until I'm going to change my vote. When you said, John, just now, who surprised you the most, kind of breaking out and being in sketches and making me laugh in ways I didn't expect? I'm going to go with one of the longest tenured cast members and say Mikey. I feel like Mikey showed so much range, live physicality, sort of making people break, being the focus, being the straight person. I think I was really so I mean, I've always liked Mikey, and I was so pleasantly surprised how many different ways he made me laugh this year in ways I didn't expect.
And he was an MVP finalist, so someone that a lot of people did think was very valuable for this season. So interesting pick there, Rich. Kirstin, where did you go for breakout?
I agree that the way you just positioned it, what Rich said, which was, kind of that left turn, that did change things for me. And it became very obvious to me that that person is Jane. Something clicked. Last season, we were wondering if her abilities or her magic would be unlocked by the show, and it was. And we got some incredible moments like Stenographer. One of my favorites of the season was her and Veronica drive through. Found her footing, found her voice, found Veronica, because I think that's a dynamic duo, and was very pleasantly surprised with everything she put out this season and hadn't been expecting it. So now looking forward to next season.
I am completely with you, Kirstin. I think that Jane was, I don't like ever calling for someone to be fired. For me, I did not understand the Jane Wickline experiment. We were here last year, and I was pretty certain that things were not going to work out for her. And I'm so happy that I was wrong about that, because I feel for me, SNL is at its best when you get good coaching on the show. And somehow, some way, they figured out how to unlock and position her humor in a way that I think works a lot better for this show. Did it materialize into her being one of the dominant forces of the season? I don't think so, but I think that she dug out of the quicksand and is easily on solid ground right now. So I think that she is a great breakout candidate. And honestly, for me, the other option is Marcelo Hernandez, who I think you may say broke out in a previous year, but for me, he broke out circumstantially from being in this Domingo sketch. And then people were like, oh, that's cool. Like, I like him. He's there. And Domingo went viral. But I think for me here, he grew so much more as a supporting player that I enjoyed him the most I have ever have in this season. And earlier, Law talked about Jeremy taking the Bowen role. I think Marcelo took a lot of the Bowen roles in a lot of sketches that we saw that were really focused around him. But then as we got further in the season, he was able to be a great supporting player for other cast members. So for me, the well-roundedness of Marcelo led me to believe that he is another great candidate for this. And he was a finalist alongside of Ashley Padilla that we spoke about, Jane Wickline, Wickline, Colin Jost, and ultimately James Austin Johnson, who, like we said, did spread his wings a little bit. So, Rich, I'll give you the final word here. Who do you think won breakout player with Ashley Padilla off the board?
I think with the audience vote, it's going to be Marcelo. I did really enjoy him this season. I didn't pick him as breakout because he already had, but I think the audience will go Marcelo.
Yeah, that's a fair choice, and it is the right choice. Marcelo did win Breakout Cast Member of the Year. Ashley, of course, is the rightful winner here, but with her off the board, Marcelo won with 21% of the vote. Over 1,700 votes came in for Breakout. Jane Wickline, 15% of the vote. Colin Jost, 13%, so pretty close there. And then James Austin Johnson did come in last place here with 8.5% of the vote. But Marcelo Hernandez, I think you may look at this, you just casual, naked eye, and just be like, what, really? Marcelo this year in his 4th year? But I'm telling you, I really think, like, go back to that Olivia Rodrigo episode, watch him in that X sketch as the person whose birthday party it is. That is the perfect quintessential example of what I'm talking about, of his growth as a cast member. And if this is the Marcelo we're going to see in future years, I'm so thrilled about it. So for me, I think he's going to be a part of the era moving forward. And congrats to our buddy Marcelo Hernandez for winning Breakout Player of the Year. So I hope you guys enjoyed our award show here for season 51. I'm so thankful to everyone who contributed and voted in whatever form that you did for this one. So I hope you continue to do it year after year, that we can continue to track these awards and you can be a part of the conversation here on the Saturday Night Network. Before we wrap our show tonight, let's turn our attention to season 52. Hard to believe, Rich, you've been around the SNL streets for a while now, that we're already talking about season 52. So what are you most looking forward to seeing next year when the show returns in a few months' time?
I'm going to take a very hot take, very different than I usually do. I think I would love to see some of my favorite performers, Mikey, Keenan, Colin, and Michael Che, step aside and let the young men of the cast start to bloom. As much as I love them, I think we are stuck. I think that Dismukes isn't getting his shot. I think that Marcelo is great. I think that some of the featured players are really good. Cam got almost no time on the show this year. There's too many men, and Mikey and Keenan are as good as they get. But I actually was watching the last couple of episodes saying, I almost wish we had done a What Up With That as the final sketch of the season and let them go. Because I think there's so much untapped talent that it's only a 90-minute show and you can't get a chance. And I thought the women did, by other strong female cast members stepping aside and letting the next generation take their reins. I would love to see that.
It is a fantastic take. I do feel like potentially some of those people are tied to Lorne Michaels. They want to be there for the last few years of Lorne. So it is something to think about just from a larger level of things. But it does seem like with the turnover among the women of the cast, that we do have this new era of women growing at the show between Jane and Veronica and Ashley, and the excitement of like, all right, well, you know, where does Sarah kind of stand at this? And I do feel like Chloe may be on her way out, but we'll see. So I think that the women, you know, there's a lot more excitement on that side of the cast. The men, I think that there's still some work to do to figure out how do we solidify how they're going to look in this new era. So love the take, would love to see what's going to happen in the future with them. Kirstin, how are you feeling about 52?
I'm excited. I think we're entering with some very great energy. Rich, you have a point. It's tough. We want the tenure and the maturity and the experience and all the great things that come with some of these folks that have been on the show longer. I mean, I almost wish that they had a more mentor coaching type role in the background, because I think there'd be a lot of value from Keenan and Mikey. I know they probably are doing that, but formalize it perhaps. I am thinking more about what I want to see. More diversity is always clearly, you know, top of my list. Specifically, let's have Glenn Powell back, please. For the second year in a row, maybe third, I'm going to manifest that Doechii is a musical guest on the show, because I really, really want to see Doechii. And I would love if, and this is for you, John, I would love if they got Engine de Poitrine on and got some more Canadian representation for a band that is blowing up right now and very exciting. That'd be quite a booking. So whoever the booking team is right now, keep it up. I'm very much enjoying everything that they're doing. Yeah, I'm just excited. Yes, Doji.
Very cool predictions, Kirstin. I think those are
Yeah.
all really interesting choices. Law, how about you? What are you looking forward to in just a few months when we return for 52?
Man, I already know that we're going to get, pardon my cynicism, we're going to get bombarded by midterm stuff to start the season. So I'm bracing myself for that. I
Good point.
don't, yeah, like that's just, you're going to go into the season and it's going to, this summer is going to be relevant to how the fall goes. Like all the stuff that SNL doesn't touch this summer, it will absolutely go into, there's going to be a feel aspect of things. I wonder what the cast is going to look like. I thought the first year cast members all have some reason to be back. Some have things that they can build on. Others need to establish more. Tommy needs to establish more. Cam, he's young, but he's not that young. So he needs to show something in year 2 that suggests that he'll be a promotion candidate. Like I think both should be back for a year 2. I wouldn't say that both should be earmarked for future promotion. Veronica's going to be on the show for a while. Jeremy's going to be on the show for a while, and Ben's already been on the show for a while. So there's that. I'm excited to see how the correspondent desk changes. We got so much Marcello on update desk. He actually had more than anybody. If you really look at
8,
it,
I think.
Yeah. I really enjoy Jane. I went from feeling sorry for Jane a year ago to being excited anytime Jane got on, especially the second half of the year. Like her growth has been dope. I love her being different. I'm a Jane Wickline fan. Like I didn't want to say that a year ago. It didn't feel like I had anything to stand on. I have that now. Ashley is going to be great, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing continued development of that half of the cast. And as far as the established cast, the veteran cast, the ones who are been there a decade or 2 or are pushing that, I just wonder what the end game is. And I realize that a lot of that is going to come down to who's running the show.
Yeah, I love all the takes here from everybody on the panel. What a great night for SNL podcasting, seriously, from all of you with all of your perspectives on the season. I think for me, there's a couple things I'm looking for in 52. One is I want to know how SNL UK and their success is going to affect SNL US. I know that Lauren has talked about this being the cool cousin across the pond, but I think when he's in the middle of the summer walking on the beach with his toes in the sand and thinking about what he wants to do with this cast, I think he's going to think about some of the success that they had over there and the hype that's been building, and maybe think about paring down the cast a little bit and what types of performers he'd like there. So for me, look, personally, I know that there's a lot of people who love having stand-ups. I could go without them hiring a stand-up for this year, at least, if they choose to go in that direction. I hope in the future we have the right place to fit them into the cast. But I think they've had some really cool opportunities hiring sketch performers from the Groundlings, from Dropout, like some cool places there. So I want us to see what they're going to do with some of their hirings and how they're going to rejigger this cast for 52. But ultimately, we'll have this discussion throughout the next couple of weeks. But I love it when you get a performer like Ashley Padilla, who's the MVP, like you had with, let's say, an Eddie Murphy coming on, and you're like, wow, Eddie, so cool. What are we going to see from him? How do they follow that up? What do they do when the pressure is on? There was no pressure on Ashley Padilla coming into this year, but all the pressure is going to be on her. Everyone is looking forward to seeing what she will do next year. And if she is able to replicate the success, then we have to talk about where she fits among the greatest to ever do it on the show. So I will be watching that week to week because that is what I love doing when I watch Saturday Night Live. So a lot to look forward to in season 52. Let me tell you the schedule that's happening on the SNN for the next couple of weeks. So we have more postseason coverage on Wednesday night. Bill Kenny, Mike Murray, and I will be here for our postseason by the number show, where we will do a full legacy watch and go through all of the numbers and data from each cast member's season. We'll talk about how we feel their numbers were did they do great from not just the eye test, or was there anything that the numbers told us about how their season really was? It's a long show, so I look forward to being with all of you again on Wednesday night to cover all of that. We will do the same thing for UK in this slot next Monday night, so that will be Monday night. Mike and I will be here. We'll go through all of the UK cast members to talk about their first series and what we look forward to seeing in the second series with them. If you've been watching that show and you want to catch up between now and next Monday, you have 1 week, and then we'll be going through all of the cast members' data. And then a week from Wednesday, we'll have our final feedback show. So patrons, if you're on Patreon, check it out. We'll be putting out the form to sign up for our final patron feedback show next Wednesday to sign up for that. And you'll be with me, and we'll be talking about anything you want to from this season. So I hope to get to catch up with all of our friends one last time as we wrap up our coverage of both shows from the season. And then the next week, we are starting our summer countdown, where we will be live every single Monday night to go through the top 100 SNL sketches of all time. We will have the form out very soon to vote for those sketches, and we will be revealing them week by week throughout the entire summer. It's going to be a blast. Patrons, podcasters, join us. It's a huge party that we do every Monday, so I hope you come back and join us. And then we will have everything you need to know about SNL season 26 coming out next Thursday, June 4th. So a lot happening here on the channel. To not miss any of it, subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And you can follow us on all social platforms at the SNL Network to never miss anything we have going on, including all of our fun data that we will be posting in the next couple of weeks about all of these cast members. Rich Tackenberg, so excited to be podcasting SNL with you. It's been an incredible 6th season of us doing this together, and I hope we do it for many more.
Happy Memorial Day.
Appreciate that, Rich. Anything you want to say to the listeners? That's it.
What do I gotta say? I'm here. It's great to see all of you. I love doing this.
Well, I hope you enjoy your hibernation, and I look forward to catching up with you in the fall. So thanks again, buddy. Kirstin, what a pleasure. Been a great season. Kirstin, you're muted, so what a great way to end this, but I want to make sure we can hear you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was saying I can't believe a year has gone by. It goes by so quickly. It's been another fantastic year. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. And thank you to all of the folks who continue to show up and watch and listen every week. We recognize the same names, or I do, and it's great to see everyone who loves the show as much as we do. So thank you.
Of course, Kirstin, I really appreciate you. And Law, so awesome to get your takes on everything Saturday Night Live. So really appreciate you joining us here.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, Rich and Kirstin. This was dope. Glad you mentioned SNL UK. Man, you talk about being excited for next year. Like, wasn't thinking about that this time a year ago, and it's cool to have 2 SNLs to look forward to on weekends. So, yeah, it's dope that this is like my balance, my rec and leisure, talking to y'all about this show. So, yeah, blessings to all y'all, and shout out to all the voters. To think that you have a forum where literally thousands of people are participating like this, like. That's really cool. I needed y'all 25 years ago when I started watching this damn show.
Well, I'm glad you found us now. I'm glad all of you have found us now. And if you want to put your picks for each of the award winners in the comments of the YouTube video, would love to get to see what each of your ballots were. So really fun to get to view and talk about them with the entire SNL community. So I want to thank everybody who worked on the award show, who helped put together and count all the votes. So really appreciate the entire team here at the SNN. Thanks to Rich and Kirstin and Law for the contributions to the podcast tonight, and everyone who stayed up with us on this Monday night to talk through all the award winners and everything from season 51. So on behalf of everyone here at the SNN, my name is Jon Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a